Welcome, dear students. Today we move on to the next topic in the subject Environmental Engineering 1 Module 2. Today we'll be discussing quality of water, the various physical characteristics. So what do you understand by the term quality of water or water quality? So water quality actually indicates the various physical, chemical and biological characteristics of water. So it is actually a measure of the condition of water relative to the requirements of one or more biotic species or to any human need or for any other purpose. So we know that usually we set certain standards for various parameters when it comes to drinking water or say water used for any other purpose. So we can say that the water is of good quality when it complies with these standards. So the most common standards that are used to assess the water quality actually relate to the health of the ecosystem and then the safety of the human, and also say like for example water that is used for drinking. So whenever we say water quality, there are various categories. Firstly, quality with reference to when we use it for human consumption. So water that is used for consumption by human beings, say for drinking water, what we do is we have to see that there should be no presence of any contaminants, because if at all there is presence of any contaminants or any other matter present in water which makes it unfit for drinking, that indicates that such water actually pose a risk to the health. And also when it comes to industrial use, so again when you say industrial, when you say the quality of water that is being used for industrial use, we see that presence of say various ions. For example, if there is presence of ions of calcium or magnesium, what happens is this will interfere with the cleaning action of soap. So when it comes to a boiler in an industry, or what happens, or heaters, we usually in industries they use soap for cleaning these frequently. So if there is presence of ions of calcium and magnesium, what happens is that will interfere with the cleaning action. And also presence of certain dissolved minerals will also affect the suitability of water for various industrial or say even for domestic purposes. Now again coming to the environmental aspect of quality, when it comes to quality of water with respect to the environment, any toxic substance present in water, or for example microorganisms that is present in water, will cause health hazard. And also there are various conditions like the presence of all this which may affect the wildlife that use the water for drinking or that use water as a habitat. When it comes to irrigation purpose also, we can say that when we use water for irrigation purpose, the quality of water affects the production of the crop, and that is also one area where the quality of water matters. Now we'll just have a quick recap on water. We already discussed in the beginning of this subject, the first class. Water is actually nothing but a chemical compound, the formula of which is H2O, that is it contains two parts of hydrogen and one part of oxygen atom. And of course there may be presence of various minerals like iron, calcium, magnesium, fluorine, etc. And if these are also present in very small amount, it is considered to be good for health. Now coming to various types of water, this we have already discussed, but quickly I'll just give you a recap on this. So pure water, what is pure water? Any water which is chemically pure, that is a chemical compound which comprises of two atoms of hydrogen and one atom of oxygen, we call it as pure water. When it comes to potable water, so what is potable water? It is water which is fit for drinking. So the water that is fit for consuming, we call it as potable water. And palatable water means the water which is aesthetically looking good. So palatable means it appears to be clear and fresh, but it need not be pure. So that is palatable water, that is aesthetically, that is appearance wise the water is clear. Now wholesome water. So what is wholesome water? So Wholesome water means it may not be pure chemically, but at the same time it does not contain anything that is harmful to the human being for consumption. Then we say it is wholesome water. And polluted water means water which contains any undesirable substance that makes it unfit or not fit for drinking or any other domestic purpose. We say the water is polluted. And coming to contaminated water, so contaminated means it contains various pathogens and it is unfit for drinking. Again, mineral water means water that contains many useful minerals, say calcium, magnesium, iron, etc. in required proportion. That is fit for drinking. We call it as mineral water. So, the various characteristics of water can be broadly classified as physical characteristics, chemical characteristics, and biological characteristics. So, today we will be discussing what are the various physical characteristics of water. So, when you say physical characteristics of water, it includes the temperature, the color, the odor, the taste, etc. Also, there is turbidity. So, these are the various physical characteristics of water, and all the physical characteristics of water are actually determined by the sense of by any sense organ, like for example the sense of touch, sight, smell, and taste. So, for example, temperature of water can be measured by just touching it. So, you can just by touch you can say whether water is warm or cool. So, the temperature is a physical characteristic which can be ascertained by just touching it. Then color, presence of any floating debris, turbidity or suspended solids in water. These can be identified by sight. So, just by looking at water or by the physical sight, you can say that water is of plain color, or if there is a presence of any other color, you can identify it by sight. At the same time, even turbidity. So, turbidity means presence of some matter in water which makes it turbid. So, turbidity will be coming to that later. Then coming to floating debris, if there are any floating debris or any other suspended solids in water, again this can be identified just by sight. And of course, odor and taste can be certain by smell. So, there are in short we can say that physical characteristics of water are those characteristics that are usually determined by the senses of touch, sight, smell, and taste. Now, so like I told you, pure water is actually a chemical compound that contains 2 hydrogen atom and 1 oxygen atom. However, we can say that pure water is not available in nature. So, there may be presence of some minerals that are present in water usually, like iron, calcium, magnesium, fluorine, etc. And the presence of these minerals in water in very small amount or in amounts in very less, that is actually useful for human consumption. But when it excesses in large amount, that is when it becomes unfit for use. And there are also some toxic elements like barium, cadmium, chromium, cyanide, lead, etc. If at all it is present in water, it is very harmful to the health. And also there are some bacteria or other organisms that are again harmful when it is present in water, and that might lead to various diseases. Say we know that there are many waterborne diseases like cholera, typhoid, etc. So, in order to ensure that water is safe, it should be thoroughly checked and analyzed and also treated so that all the parameters are within the safe and permissible limit before we supply it to the public. So, now we will see what are the various physical characteristics of water. So, with the various physical characteristics actually includes the following, that is turbidity, color, taste or odor, and then comes temperature and the specific conductivity. So, what do you mean by turbidity? So, turbidity means here we usually say water is turbid whenever you see water which appears muddy or cloudy. So, why does water appear muddy or cloudy? Because due to the presence of various suspended matter. For example, clay. When you mix clay in water, what happens? It becomes muddy or cloudy. You can't see through. So, in such cases, we can say that water is turbid. or even the presence of silt or any other finely divided organic or inorganic matter, we say that water is turbid. And turbidity also can be not only clay or silt or any other matter, it can also occur due to the presence of, say, bacteria, algae, or any other fungi, etc. And we can say that turbidity is actually the measure of the resistance to the passage of light through water. So when you pass when you pass light through water, what happens? It has to pass through the water. So if at all there is presence of any other matter in water that leads to turbidity, then there will be some resistance to this passage of light. So thus we can define turbidity as a measure of resistance to the passage of light through water. So we have to actually remove turbidity. Mainly, firstly, sometimes turbid water may not be harmful for consumption, but still we have to remove it, because nobody will feel like drinking a water which is turbid or which appears like muddy, even though it may not be harmful or it may not contain any contamination or anything that is harmful for human consumption. Still, due to some psychological reasons or due to the aesthetic reasons, we don't use it or consume it, and for this reason we have to remove the turbidity. And it is usually expressed in parts per million or milligrams per liter. So the turbidity value is usually expressed in parts per million or milligrams per liter. And usually the standard unit that which is produced by 1 milligram of finely divided silica, that is dissolved in 1 liter of water. So it is measured on a silica scale. So this is the standard unit of turbidity. And for potable water, that is water that is fit for drinking, the allowable or the permissible limit for turbidity is actually 5 to 10 parts per million. And normally we use two methods for measuring the turbidity of water. One is by using a turbidity rod or by a turbidimeter. So what is a turbidity rod? So turbidity rod is actually used to measure the turbidity in the field. So whenever you use field, we know that there are various methods of testing or testing the quality of water, or for that matter any other materials. So we do the field test as well as the laboratory test. So turbidity rod is normally used for measuring the turbidity in the field. And this is a typical turbidity rod as you see in the figure. So it consists of a graduated aluminum rod which directly gives the turbidity. So turbidity value will be directly, you can see the graduations there. So we can read the turbidity value directly in milligrams per liter. There is a graduated tape. As you can see, there is a tape here which is graduated at the upper end for lowering and the rod into the water. Upper end for lowering the rod into the water. So there is a graduated tape there, and there is a mark for eye position. So here you can see there is a mark for viewing, that is called a mark for eye position. And then a platinum needle is provided at the bottom. There is a platinum needle that is provided at the bottom. So how will you measure the turbidity using this rod? So firstly what we do is we will lower this graduated aluminum rod into the water by keeping the eye at its upper end. So the eye portion, that is a portion at the top, here you can see the eye mark. So that is kept at the upper end, and we will be inserting the aluminum rod into the water, that water of which we have to test the turbidity. And then the platinum needle at the lower end will be viewed from this point, and the rod will be then moved slowly downwards into the water, and the reading on the rod will be noted. So when you see through this eye mark here, you can see the platinum rod as you insert this rod into the water. So we keep inserting it or moving this rod downwards until the needle just disappears, that is we are not able to see the needle. So at that point we will note the reading, and that will give the turbidity of water. So directly we will get the turbidity value on the graduated scale. Is it clear? So this is how we measure the turbidity using a turbidity rod, and this is mainly used in field. Now we have the turbidimeter. So this is actually used for testing the turbidity in the lab. So turbidimeter is used for testing turbidity in the lab, and here it actually works on the principle of measuring the interference caused by the water sample to the passage of light rays. So light rays are allowed to pass through the water sample, and how it interferes with this passage of light, based on that principle we will measure the turbidity in this case. So there are normally three types of turbidimeter that are used in the lab. One is the Jackson's turbidimeter, we have the Bailey's turbidimeter, as well as the nephelometers. So what is Jackson's turbidimeter? So this Jackson's turbidimeter is actually used to measure high turbidity, usually for a range of 25 to 1000 parts per million. We use this type of a turbidimeter. So it actually consists, as you see in the figure, it consists of a glass tube. Here there is a glass tube, graduated glass tube, which is placed over a tube holder, and then this tube holder is again fixed over a metallic stand. So you have a metallic stand at the bottom, over which there is a metallic tube holder, and inside this metallic tube holder there is the graduated glass tube. So this is a typical Jackson's candle turbidimeter, and then there is a candle at the bottom. So in order to measure the turbidity here, what we do is we light up this candle at the bottom, and then we will keep adding water in the glass tube that is present at the top. So initially the candle flame, when we observe it from the top, we can see the candle flame. So we keep adding water until the image of the candle flame disappears. So this height of water will be noted in the glass tube, which is graduated. We will note the height at which when we add water, the image of the candle flame completely disappears. So this height of water actually provides a measure of the turbidity, and we usually express it as JTU, and this is called Jackson's turbidity unit. So we express in JTU. So this is actually usually the Jackson's candle turbidimeter is limited to measuring the turbidity of water from natural sources. So it is not usually applied for treated water, since the lowest turbidity that can be measured using a Jackson's turbidimeter is 25 parts per million. So below that we cannot measure. So for treated water we usually don't use this Jackson's candle turbidimeter. It is normally used for water which is obtained in natural sources. So this is a typical Jackson candle turbidimeter. Now we again have the next type, that is the Bailey's turbidimeter. So Bailey's turbidimeter is again used for measuring the turbidity in the range 0 to 10 parts per million. So for very less turbidity, very minute turbidity also can be measured using a Bailey's turbidimeter. So it actually consists of, as you see in the figure here, it consists of an iron box and two glass tubes placed vertically. So here in the figure you can see there are two glass tubes which are placed here. There are two views here. One is the prospective view and the other is the sectional view. So you can see there are two tubes. There are two glass tubes which are placed in an iron box, and these are placed vertically, and these glass tubes are surrounded by cobalt plates at the bottom. You can see at the bottom vertical blue cobalt glass plates. So they are covered by blue cobalt plates at the bottom, and then there is an electric bulb which is located in order to throw light on the tubes. Here you can see there is an electric bulb on the right hand side here. So from this bulb light will be thrown on the two glass tubes. So this is a typical sectional view of the Bailey's turbidimeter. Now coming to the working of this, like I told you, this is used for testing the turbidimeter in a lab and usually used for testing turbidity in the range of 0 to 10 parts per million. So here the procedure is like, the water that is to be tested will be filled in one of the glass tubes. So there are two glass tubes like I told you. In one glass tube you will fill the water that is to be tested, and in the second tube what you do is you will fill water the turbidity of which is already known. So already we will be knowing the turbidity of the sample that is given in the second tube, the value will be already known. So that water will be filled in the second tube. So light will be allowed to fall on the glass tube, and the color of both the samples will be observed from the top. So the change, we keep changing the water in the second tube with different known turbidity until it matches the color of water in the first tube. So thus when both the tubes the water color remains the same when light is passed, we can say that the turbidity is that of the value which is turbidity value which is filled in the second tube. So water in the first tube will be kept so that it can be compared to the turbidity of water that is present in the second tube by passing a light or by throwing light on the tubes, and the turbidity of the sample will be thus known, and that is the turbidity of water that is present in the second tube. So here we express turbidity in BTU, that is Bailey's turbidity unit. So this is the Bailey's turbidimeter. This is actually a comparative method. So in one tube you will take water that is to be tested, and the other tube we take water whose turbidity is already known, and we compare the two until both are same. So this is a typical Bailey's turbidimeter. So that is about turbidimeter and Bailey's turbidimeter and Jackson turbidimeter. Now coming to the nephelometers, these are all again used to measure the turbidity, especially for measuring very low turbidity. And here the light, we observe the light that is reflected at right angles, and here again the turbidity is represented in NTU, that is nephelometer's turbidity unit, or we even say FTU, that is Formazine turbidity unit. This is because formazine is used as a standard suspension instead of silica. That is why we call it as FTU. That is a nephelometer. This is again a type of instrument that is used to measure turbidity in the laboratory. Now coming to the next physical characteristic. So we discussed turbidity. Now coming to the color. So we know that water usually is colorless, but sometimes due to the presence of some organic matter, say for example from a decaying vegetation or any other inorganic materials like colored soil, or maybe due to the growth of any microorganisms or say algae etc., or due to presence of any metallic ion, there may be presence of color in water. So sometimes the presence of color may not be harmful or detrimental for human health. However, it is from the health point of view, it may not be objectionable. But again, like I said, in the case of turbidity, here again it may be objectionable because of its aesthetic view or aesthetic appearance, or due to some psychological reasons. So color may not be objectionable, but still it may be objectionable. May not be objectionable when it comes to health aspects, but still people will not consume. You will never feel like consuming water which is colored, even though it may not be harmful. So that is the psychological factor. So, and also it is measured by comparing, usually the color of water is measured by comparing the color with some other standard glass tube. Here we use the Nessler's tube. So that is a tube which contains a standard solution, and based on that color we compare the sample, and then that is how we measure the color. And usually the standard unit for color is actually that which is produced by 1 milligram of platinum cobalt that is dissolved in 1 liter of water. So you dissolve 1 milligram of platinum cobalt in 1 liter of water. So that unit or that color is taken as the standard unit for color. And for precise determination of color, we also use another instrument which is called as the tintometer. So that actually consists of an eyepiece with 2 holes, and a slide of standard colored water will be seen through one hole, and the slide of water to be tested will be viewed from the other, and the standard color will be replaced like we saw in the Bailey's turbidimeter. Here this standard color will be replaced by some other color till we obtain a matching color, and the color intensity of the sample will be that of the standard solution. And usually the permissible limit for public use of color should not be greater than 20 parts per million. This is about color. Coming to taste and odor. So taste in water may be due to the presence of again some other organic matter, or maybe due to some presence of any other dissolved gases or inorganic salt. So this is represent, or odor means the smell. So this is actually, odor is usually represented in terms of a number. We call it as a threshold odor number, and this actually indicates the dilution ratio at which the detection of taste and odor by human observation is lost. So this number we call it as the threshold odor number. So for example, suppose there is 40 ml of sample, 40 ml of a sample is diluted to make 200 ml until it loses its color, taste and odor. Suppose 40 ml of a sample of water is diluted and to make 200 ml, and we see that it loses its taste and odor, then we can say the threshold odor number is 5. So usually the permissible limit is 1 to 3. So I hope this is clear. For example, if you take 40 ml of a sample of water, so by adding 5 times of water we dilute it, so it becomes 200 ml. So, for example, so suppose when it is diluted to 200 ml and at that point it loses the taste or odor, that means here the threshold odor number is 5. And sometimes it may be 3 times. When you say you are adding water 3 times the measure of the sample, the color and taste is or the odor and taste is lost, then that means the threshold number will be 3. So usually the permissible limit for the threshold odor number is between 1 and 3. And coming to temperature, so temperature, the desirable temperature for water is 10 degrees Celsius. For 10 degrees Celsius is a desirable, and if it is above 25 degrees Celsius, we can say it is objectionable. So that is about temperature. Now coming to the specific conductivity, or we say the electrical conductivity. So it is actually a measure of the total dissolved solids that is present in the given water sample. So, and it is again measured by a conductivity sensor at a temperature of 25 degrees Celsius. Usually the unit of conductivity, it is represented as mHOS. You know that resistivity is ohm. So conductivity is actually the inverse of resistivity. That is why inverse of ohm is mHOS. So unit of conductivity, it is usually represented as mHOS per centimeter, or we say it is Siemens per centimeter. And total dissolved solid means it is a it is actually specific conductivity into conductivity factor, and the conductivity factor is normally between 0.54 and 0.96, and more commonly we use 0.67 as the conductivity factor. So this is the specific conductivity, which is again a physical characteristic of water, which is of importance. So these are the various physical characteristics of water. In the next class we will be discussing the various chemical characteristics as well as the biological characteristics. Thank you.